Hi, everyone.
Greetings. On page 211 of the Proclaimer's book, in the chapter Development of the Organization Structure, they're maneuvering here to tell you how they responded to the disappointment of 1914 and 15 and 18. That's the backdrop of all of this discussion, right? So let's just read it and see how they handle it, because of course a lot of this wasn't in the history that I read, Divine Purpose book, back in the 1970s, but here it is in 1993 in the book, but with spin. I mean, lots of spin. So let's read paragraphs on page 211 and 212.
Some activities required more specific direction from the society. In connection with the showing of the photodrama of creation, it was left to each congregation to determine whether they were willing and able to rent a theater or other facility for a local presentation. However, it was necessary to move equipment from city to city, and schedules had to be met. So in these respects, centralized direction was provided by the society. Each congregation was encouraged to have a drama committee to care for local arrangements, but a superintendent sent out by the society gave careful attention to details in order to make sure that everything went smoothly.
As the years 1914 and then 1915 passed, those spirit-anointed Christians waited eagerly for the fulfillment of their heavenly hope. We might ask why. Why were they waiting eagerly? Because the date was set. At the same time, they were encouraged to keep busy in the Lord's service. Keep busy. Don't think about what just happened. Even though they viewed their remaining time in the flesh as very brief, that's admitted, it became evident that in order to carry on the preaching of the good news in an orderly manner, more direction was needed than when they had numbered just a few hundred. Shortly after J.F. Rutherford became the second president of the Watchtower Society, that direction took on new aspects. The March 1st, 1917 issue of the Watchtower announced that henceforth all territory to be worked by colporteurs and by pastoral workers, and that's an evident reference to a group that was then assigned in local congregations. At least at first it seems to be mostly women. In the congregations, all pastoral workers, colporteurs, would be assigned by the Society's office, where there were both local workers and colporteurs sharing in such field service in a city or a county. The territory was divided up among them by a locally appointed district committee. This arrangement contributed to a truly remarkable distribution of the finished mystery within just a few months in 1917 to 1918. It was also valuable in achieving a lightning distribution of 10 million copies of a powerful expose of Christendom in a tract that featured the subject, the fall of Babylon.
Shortly after this, members of the Society's administrative staff were arrested, and on June 21, 1918, they were sentenced to 20-year prison terms. The preaching of the good news came to a virtual standstill. Was this the time when they would at last be united with the Lord in heavenly glory? A few months later, the war ended. The following years, the officials of the society were released. They were still in the flesh. It was not what they had expected, and they concluded that God must still have work for them to do here on earth. They had just been through severe tests of their faith. However, in 1919, the Watchtower strengthened them with stirring scriptural studies on the theme, "Blessed are the fearless." These are followed by the article, "Opportunities for Service." But the brothers did not envision the extensive organizational developments that would take place during the decades that would follow.
Oh my goodness, if you've read The Finished Mystery and you know what's in the fall of Babylon, this expose of Christendom,
Yeah.
you realize how absurd their spin is here, and yet it is successful spin. For instance, what's the spin on their bravery during this period? The article that they cite here in 1919 is "Blessed are the fearless." If you've read The Finished Mystery, could well just call it blessed are the foolish, because according to you, you're going to get rewards for not just believing this stuff about 14, 15, 18, and then 25, because that's what you're setting up for in these years when you're preaching fearlessly. You're setting up for another date, 1925. We've said it before, and it's worth saying again, the finished mystery by itself would blow you right out of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
That's why you can't tell us what was in the book. How does that connect to your prison sentences, by the way?
Yeah. So the only reason that they can put this spin on it is because Jehovah's Witnesses now don't know what's in the finished mystery. They've never read the finished mystery. So they don't know all the crazy stuff that's in there. Yeah. Where is this a truly remarkable distribution of the finished mystery? You'd be embarrassed by that book now, and you don't republish it. And you discourage people from reading it, and they're hard to find now.
So this remarkable distribution that you talk about here is actually more proof that you were not what you thought you were, and what you still say they were. This is the only faithful, fearless, true disciples of Jesus Christ at that time are these few anointed. You admit it was a few hundred here, and then it was a few thousand, but they were all carrying around Russell's foolishness, and then they were carrying around the finished mystery.
Now, I do remember this powerful expose of Christendom. That is engraved in my brain, that they used to always say that this was such a brave book, and it exposed Christendom and all their faults. But if you read it, this book is a book of slander against Christendom. It has nothing to do with preaching the good news. Here they're saying, it just virtually stood still. But if that was your good news, I'm not just saying because it was negative about Christendom. It wasn't about Christ.
It was,
and his death, burial, and resurrection. That's not the good news they're preaching.
In effect, the finished mystery and all the publications that build up to 25, including the new campaign, the Millions campaign, all of that is an expose of you.
Yeah.
It exposes that you're truly a false prophet. If ever a group within Christendom deserved to be called a false prophet, it's your message specifically during this period. But you haven't repented of it. No. Here you are justifying it.
You just set new dates after this. So you just put, and then say, well, God has more work for us to do. That's not admitting we were preaching the wrong thing. We were preaching dates. They didn't come true. We're sorry. And then preach what you should preach.
Well,
That's not what they do.
They didn't preach what they should preach. They should have repented of the date setting. They should have repented of the false doctrines they were teaching.
And the slander.
But really, all of these new goals, all of this is smoke and mirrors by Rutherford himself to distract from the fact that everything had failed. It's scrambling around to make some sense of the mess of 1914. But you admit here there's other messes. 1915, yes, that was another mess because you covered up the 14 and postponed it to 15. But then you got your 1260 days and moved the whole thing from 14 to 18. Christendom's now going to fall in 18. Then the anarchy's going to come in 20, and then, of course, by 1925, Israel will be restored. Comfort for the Jews.
In between then, Christendom will have fallen completely, and all the people in Christendom will be destroyed wholesale, I think was the word they used.
But it does suggest very strongly that the people who wrote this book know all this stuff. And whether they actually believe the spin themselves, because they've said it so often, to ennoble themselves and give themselves a glorious history, which what this is. It's a crazy quilt of facts attached to spin that you didn't spin at the time. It's retroactive spin.
Now they have a box here we should read because they're guilty of something else.
Oh yeah, okay. Whose work is it? Toward the end of his earthly life, Charles Taze Russell wrote, "Too often do God's people forget that the Lord himself is at the head of his work." So now they've implicated the Lord in this particular work. Too often the thought is, we will do a work and get God to co-labor with us in our work. Well, that's actually what happened. Let us get the right focus on the matter and perceive that God has purposed and is carrying out a great work, and that it will succeed entirely regardless of us and our effort. Sounds humble.
Mm.
But look at this part. And that it is a great privilege granted to the people of God, us, to co-labor with their Maker in the carrying out of His plans,
His is
His
capitalized.
designs. Yes, just like Christendom does. His plans, His designs, His arrangements, and His way. Viewing matters from this standpoint, our prayer and our watching should be with a view to knowing and doing the will of the Lord, content whatever lot we see, since 'tis our God who leads us. Our God leads us. So the conviction that all of this is of God, well, that really amounts to blasphemy, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
This is the program which the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society has sought to follow. May 1st, 1915, Watchtower.
Yeah. So that's blasphemy. 4 times you said that it, well, more than 4 times really, but in the middle part there, carrying out His plans, His design, His arrangements, His way, all of which failed, all of which was not true, the things that you call His plan. You've scrapped His books, and that's where He says the plan, all God's plans are in these books.
The divine plan of the ages.
Mm-hmm.
So, to this brave, 'tis our God who leads us, we can only say really, because all of this spin is necessary, and all you take away from it is that we were so brave.
Mm-hmm.
Our brothers back then were so brave.
Yeah.
And now it looks like absolute foolishness.
Yeah. 'Tis your president that leads you.
Yeah.
And it's His plans, His arrangements.
And a good example of the spin, though, is what they did to spin it back in 1916. Just before Russell dies, he's already spinning what happened in 1914 the way he wants it to go.
Yeah.
So we thought to put in a link in about that in our Were Jehovah's Witnesses Ever God's Organization series. We have very early in that series about the 1914 cover-up.
Yeah.
In the editions put out after 1914, the date is changed.
Yeah.
In several aspects. So we show
Yeah.
some of that in this video.
Right.
See you soon.
Mm-hmm.